Welcome to the Breaking Orbit podcast. I have a confession to make. We tape this podcast live, and if you are watching this live, uh, you're actually watching this 7 minutes late because we're 7 minutes late. I miscalculated the time to start and had to make lunch, and my daughter wanted to make lunch with me. So she wanted to make her own peanut butter sandwich. My daughter is 5, just turned 5 on Sunday. And so if if you have a 5-year-old or a 4-year-old, you understand the process of making sandwiches can be a little bit messy. Peanut butter sandwiches, yeah, she did a good job, but it was a little bit painstaking and time consuming, and so we're starting late. But today we're going to be talking about how to overcome the fear of big, and I think it's going to be really helpful for you. Those of you who have big dreams, big things, but are struggling to maintain momentum or to figure out how to get down the road faster, to level up faster. Maybe you've been stuck somewhere, and we're going to talk about how to overcome that, why that happens, why we have that fear, and how we can move forward. All right. That being said, we are here for another edition of the Breaking Orbit podcast, episode 28. Let's go to work. I was having a conversation with a client actually earlier today, and we were talking about the experience that she's having going through a situation where a business is dealing with a bankruptcy. And she was talking about the fact that, she was really trying to figure out, is this like a sign to slow down and not to really lean into some of the success that she's been having over the past 6 months or so. So the bankruptcy was something that had happened. And so she had started another business, and now things started going really well with that. And we were talking about that whole process. And one of the things that she was really wrestling with was, should she kind of shut things down a little bit and let things kind of play out, because the bankruptcy situation had been kind of frustrating. There were additional fees and things that were coming up, and it was kind of putting her into a sense emotionally where she felt like she was stuck in a box. And I thought about her situation in terms of the conversation we'd have today around overcoming the fear of big, and what that really means for a lot of us. So to kind of backtrack, big picture, for a lot of people, you have big dreams. There are things that you maybe would love to be able to do or to accomplish in your business or in your life. And for those of you who have had a measure of success already, maybe you're already at 6 or 7 figures, maybe you're already um, knocking a lot of those checking a lot of those boxes, things that are out of the way. You're kind of wondering what's next, and you're kind of stuck at the same level. Like, we often have this idea that we're going to continually grow forward, that we're going to continue to move forward in what we're doing. We're going to continue to level up. And a lot of times we don't actually hit that. We kind of plateau, and we don't continue to stay on the ramp, scaling and growing and things of that nature. And so it can be frustrating, right? And so how do you deal with that when you have this expectation that you should be moving forward, moving faster, growing in your business, having the momentum in your life, but things just don't seem to be acclimating in that direction? They don't seem to be moving forward in the way that you really like for them to be able to do. So when that happens, how do you handle those challenges? How do you deal with those things to be able to make that progress? So one of the biggest realizations that I've helped people come to and had to come to myself is that because growth is not always it's not always perpetual. And in other words, sometimes I feel like you're stagnant and you want to be able to continue to level up, and you're not able to hit those targets. Is there something about you? Is there a sign that God or the universe is trying to share with you? Right. And I think one of the things you get to do is understand that, one, we are created to be in growth, and that in our gift, we have the capacity for exponential growth. We have the capacity for exponential impact. But the thing that's always going to stand in our way is always going to be us, right? So it's always going to be, we're always going to be the lid, the impediment to being able to move forward. And oftentimes, most oftentimes, that lid that we place on our own growth and our own momentum is a lid of fear. We have anxiety, we have this stress around what it is that we're doing, what it is that we're up to, and we're trying to figure out how do we navigate that thing to move forward much more quickly, much more powerfully in what we're out to create. And so understanding why we have this fear is very, very important. And it happens for a number of different reasons, right? And it doesn't always present as fear, because I say this all the time: limiting beliefs are invisible. A belief is invisible because that's just how we see the world. It feels true to us, and therefore it colors everything that we see in our world. And I see this a lot of times with business owners. They see it in their employees, they see it in their structures, they see it in the environment in the world. Like, this is how the world is, whatever you think of that, whether you're a positively minded person, glass half full, glass half empty, whatever the case may be. And what I want to contend to you is that a lot of us spend more time focusing on the glass than the water, right? And so we'll focus on how much water is in the glass or not in the glass, and focus on and lose sight of the fact that we often think of the glass as the only place where water exists. And so if you are seeing your world or your life in that way, then you are automatically coming with a level of scarcity, whether you see it as half full or half empty, right? The fact of the matter is that a glass is just a container, but that water is abundant. Water is everywhere. Even in the air, if you transform oxygen, you can distill it into water if you have the process. And so it is just, if you are ever thirsty, you can create enough to feed yourself, to water your world, whatever the case may be. But out of fear, we transform ourselves, our minds begin to transform our world into this very narrow view. And so the fear of big, as I call it, is not just the fear of dreaming big, but of being big, of being infinite, of being infinitely powerful. And one of the reasons for that, I'll kind of go back to this story. I was talking to this client. She's had a tremendous amount of success on social media. But one of the challenges that she was facing was that uh, as a woman on social media, a lot of times there are the positives, but there's the negativity as well. There's a lot of idiots out there. There's a lot of insecure men, insecure people, period, but insecure men who will say things that are inappropriate, that will take shots and things of that nature. And it created a level of anxiety for her around that. And so in some ways, we kind of discovered that it can be an excuse, a reason that we create to narrow ourselves, to restrict the level of growth, because we learn that we're unsafe. We learn to feel unsafe in that expansion. And that's what she was experiencing in this process, that by exposing herself to more people, she would be exposing herself to greater and greater possibilities of attack and assault. And certainly that's a very valid point. But as you're operating on that level of primal instinct, out of safety for yourself and maybe for your family, you're not able to really elevate and create greater offers to the world in terms of the value that you can create. And so there is a fear of being bigger. There's a fear of expanding. There's a fear of leveling up that becomes kind of baked into everything that you're doing. And if you want to be able to grow, to continue to maintain momentum, to accelerate through the curves that are inevitably going to come, then you have to learn how to manage that internal fear, that internal limiter that we have that comes up whenever we feel unsafe, whenever we are uncertain of what it's going to look like or feel like when we're there. Because certainly for many of us, we will look at the next level and say that's optimal. That's what we want most of all. We want to be there. And we have different reasons for what that means. We want some that we've created, some that we've been conditioned to believe, some that are just desirable because the state or the current condition that we're in or status or level that we're currently sitting on is undesirable. But if we're too comfortable, we never push past it. And if we're uncomfortable but can't see how to move out of or through that discomfort, through that fear, then we stay in a state of misery. We actually stay in a state of suffering. And to me, what I have witnessed through working with most clients and even witnessed with myself is that there is a imposed state of suffering that many of us create by being in this box, by being in this stagnant place where we don't create enough momentum, where we're always questioning ourselves or questioning the next step. And so we often create our own hurdles, things that we trip over that are invisible, but they feel valid, they feel solid to us. And so we stay stuck. We don't move forward. And if you want to be able to, in your life, create momentum, in your business, be able to create momentum, learning how to see those hurdles, those invisible barriers that often exist in our mind is especially important. Super, super important. And so, again, one of the biggest ways to do that is to tack back to first principles of giftedness, right? That we all have a unique capacity, a powerful capacity to singularly impact the world as only we can do. That is an infinite value, right? So there's no limit or cap on that. There's no limit to how much you can grow, how many people you can touch in terms of moving forward. Certainly we're restricted physically in what we can do, but your gift is your ability to expand beyond your physical state, to be able to reach and touch people wherever they may be. And we see this with technology. We keep creating new tools to be able to expand on our capacity to connect with one another, to impact people, to change lives, things of that nature. And so the only limiters are those that we place on them. How do we cobble together tools to be able to stack tools on top of each other to be able to create more and more value for people? That is what business is really all about to me, is that you're solving problems for people, but you're able to see those problems from different angles and different perspectives. And those different angles and perspectives create new opportunities. And being able to empower other people to see that their own world from a new perspective allows them to be able to lean into things and to be able to do things in a different way. And that is the beauty of being able to rid ourselves of that fear of big. When you understand that your gift is that unique capacity, right? So you're not limited to just what other people think of you. You're not limited to this narrow view of the world. You're not limited to a glass, whether it's half full or half empty. You realize you can tap into water wherever it exists, or be able to create it through the process that can extract it from the air, from the very environment, the very atmosphere that we live in. Now you have created something that is a path forward, a path to momentum that becomes inevitable. You become a juggernaut in your own world, in your own life. Your business becomes that vehicle to be able to take you as far and as fast as you want to be able to do. I love what Gary Keller says. He says, you are only 5 years away from anything that you want in life. And the key is knowing how to get it. And one of those keys to knowing how to get it is understanding how to get out of your own way, how to overcome the fears, how to distill those fears, and learn to see yourself and your own capacities in a completely different way. I didn't say this at the beginning, but if you're watching this on Facebook, LinkedIn, or YouTube, then drop a comment below. Let me know where you're watching this from. Let me know if you're watching this live, or drop a hashtag replay if you're watching this a little bit later. Let me know what you're discovering. I always love to hear people's questions and their thoughts as well. Let me know this has been valuable for you. What is your fear of big? What is the big that you're afraid of becoming, of being, of leaning into? And it doesn't matter what level you're at, because again, the next level is always a level that we've never been to. Even if let's say you've made $100 million in the business and you're only at 10 in a new business. It's a new business. You've never been at 100 million in this business, but you are always infinitely capable of creating more value. And if you can make that shift and see the world in a different way, it can open up so many new avenues for you to be able to move forward and to do the things that you most want to do. So I'd love to know what your thoughts are. What's your fear? What's the big that you're afraid of? What's the big that you're hesitant to lean into? And what would be possible for you? What would be possible for you if you could remove that fear? If you could literally uninstall it from your operating system? If you could literally find a path forward in a completely new and exciting way, what will be possible for you? I'd love to have you follow us on LinkedIn, subscribe, join the Seven Figure Circle $1 Million Mastermind Facebook group. If you are not yet a member, we'd love to have you. Got a ton of free content, masterclasses, trainings, great things to be able to support you in your growth and your journey over there. And subscribe to the YouTube channel. Make sure you smash the bell notification so you know when we're going live with more great content. Hopefully this has been valuable for you, and I hope that you are moving forward in terms of overcoming your fear of big. We're here to support you in all those efforts to do just that. All right. I've been your host, Frederick Douglass Bussey. I've been your host. I'll be your host. I'll still be Frederick Douglass Bussey when you come back for our next edition of the Breaking Orbit podcast. I appreciate each and every one of you stopping by for a second, a minute, or even longer. And I hope to see you on the next episode of the podcast. I'm your host, Frederick Douglass Bussey, and this, as always, is about moving forward, ever forward.